Welcome to Podcasts. A fan-favorite character, someone viewers had spent 3 full seasons rooting for, gets shot dead in episode 9 of 23. Not the finale, not a mid-season cliffhanger designed to bring her back. Just gone. And the show keeps going for 14 more episodes. That is the kind of storytelling gut punch that Person of Interest Season 3 opens with, and honestly, it's just the beginning. Today, we are doing a complete, full spoiler walkthrough of Season 3. You'll understand how the HR arc builds and collapses, what the Rise of Samaritan actually means for the show's world, and why the finale titled Deus Ex Machina leaves our heroes in a worse position than when they started. Joining me to break all of this down is someone who has clearly spent a lot of time in this world. Let's get into it. So, set the stage for us. What is Season 3 of Person of Interest actually doing differently from what came before?
So Season 3 is really where the show stops being a procedural with mythology sprinkled in and becomes full mythology with procedural cases as the texture. The machine, this AI that Harold Finch built for the government, is now completely self-governed. Its whereabouts are unknown, and it's still feeding Finch what the show calls irrelevant numbers, meaning people in danger who aren't terrorism targets, just ordinary people caught up in crime.
Right, and that's the core premise. The government only cares about the terrorism side, so Finch and Reese handle the irrelevant cases on their own.
Exactly. And Jim Caviezel's John Reese is in every single episode this season, all 23 of them, according to the Person of Interest wiki. Michael Emerson as Finch, too. But what's new is that Sarah Shahi's Samin Shaw is now fully integrated into the team, and Amy Acker's Root is evolving into something really interesting. She becomes what the show calls the machine's analog interface, basically the machine's chosen human operator.
And then there's the villain side, which is genuinely layered this season. It's not just one bad guy.
No, and that's what makes Season 3 so dense. You've got 3 separate threat structures running simultaneously. First, HR, this corrupt police organization that's been a thorn in the team's side. Second, Vigilance, a violent anti-government hacktivist group devoted to exposing surveillance. And third, Decima Technologies, a shadow company trying to bring their own AI called Samaritan online. 3 fronts, all at once.
That's a lot to juggle. And the show was airing right after the Edward Snowden revelations broke, right? Like, the timing of all this surveillance content was not accidental.
According to Wikipedia's coverage of the season, it aired shortly after events associated with Edward Snowden and attracted more attention because of those similarities. A show about a secret government AI that watches everyone, airing right when the public is learning that's basically real? That's a wild cultural moment to be releasing this season into.
It almost makes the show feel less like fiction and more like a thought experiment that got too close to the truth.
Completely. And the season averaged 14.05 million viewers, ranking as the 8th most watched series of the 2013-14 television season, per Wikipedia. So people were watching. Critics were praising it specifically for its focus on artificial intelligence.
Okay, so let's actually walk through the season. Where does it open?
Episode 1 is called Liberty, and it drops you right into Fleet Week in New York City. The machine gives Finch the number of a US naval officer, but the problem is there are sailors flooding every street in the city, so finding this one person is genuinely difficult. Meanwhile, Carter, Detective Joss Carter, played by Taraji P. Henson, has been demoted to patrol officer because HR set her up, and she is already plotting to bring them down.
So Carter's demotion is the engine that drives her whole arc this season.
Exactly. And Root is still in the psych ward at this point, testing its limits. Episode 2, Nothing to Hide, introduces a new vigilante named Collier, that's Peter Collier, played by Leslie Odom Jr., who becomes the face of Vigilance. Carter also gets a new rookie partner, Mike Lasky, which becomes its own complication.
Wait, Leslie Odom Jr. is in this? That's a casting detail I did not have on my radar.
He appears in 8 of the 23 episodes this season, according to the Person of Interest wiki, and he's genuinely menacing as Collier. The character has this ideological conviction that makes him feel like more than just a standard antagonist.
Okay, keep going. What are the standout early episodes?
Episode 5, Razgogor, is a fan favorite. Shaw is assigned to stay close to a 10-year-old girl identified by the machine, and she grudgingly develops respect for this kid's surveillance skills. It's a Shaw-centric episode, and it's rated 9.1 on IMDb, which is the highest of the early run. Meanwhile, Carter's mission to bring down HR is getting dangerously close to exposure.
A 9.1 for a Shaw and a 10-year-old episode. That's impressive.
It works because Shaw is such a specific character, not warm, not nurturing, and yet she connects with this kid. It's unexpected. And then episode 6, Mors Prematura, Root escapes the psych ward. The machine helped her plan it, and she immediately drags Shaw into whatever mission the machine has sent her on.
So Root is now operating as this free agent who takes orders directly from the machine. That's a fascinating dynamic.
It really is. And it sets up Root's whole arc this season. She's on a journey of redemption, according to the Person of Interest Wiki's season plotlines, but she's doing it by becoming the machine's instrument. She appears in 17 of the 23 episodes.
All right, so we're building toward what I think is the emotional center of the entire season, the HR trilogy, episodes 8, 9, and 10.
This is it. This is the stretch that an IMDb reviewer called phenomenal and said it rivals the best of TV. Episode 8 is Endgame, Carter's flashback episode. She has been building her case against HR for the entire first half of the season, and now she goes all in. She's going after Quinn, Simmons, HR, and the Russian mafia simultaneously.
She basically declares war on an entire criminal organization by herself.
With Reese and the team's help, yes. And it works. She uncovers and arrests HR's leader. The organization comes down. And then episode 9, The Crossing, is where everything falls apart. The team is ambushed by Simmons, HR's rogue second-in-command, played by Robert John Burke. He shoots both Reese and Carter.
Reese survives. Carter doesn't.
Simmons escapes. Carter dies from her wounds. And according to Screen Rant's coverage, Finch watched in horror as Reese cried over her body. That image, Reese, this stoic, almost robotic operative, completely broken, is one of the most talked about moments in the entire series.
And Jim Caviezel apparently really delivered in those moments. The reviews specifically called it out.
The Showbiz Junkie's review of the finale actually noted that season 3 was the first season since the show's beginning where Caviezel conveyed emotions of true sadness and bitter grief. Because Reese is usually this icy, controlled presence. Seeing him shattered was genuinely new territory for the character.
And then episode 10, The Devil's Share, is the fallout.
It's the revenge episode. Reese goes after Simmons. The IMDb reviewer called it the highlight episode of the season and said it showcased the show at its absolute best. Lionel Fusco, the detective played by Kevin Chapman, is also brilliant in this stretch. He's been quietly building his own reputation in the NYPD, and these episodes are where that pays off.
Fusco is such an underrated part of this show. He appears in 18 of 23 episodes this season.
He really is. And after Carter's death, Reese briefly leaves the team entirely. That's one of the season's plotlines, according to the wiki, his disillusionment and temporary retirement. He's just done. Grief does that.
Now, here's something I want to get into, because it reframes the whole Carter storyline in a really interesting way. Her death wasn't purely a creative decision by the writers.
Right. According to Screen Rant, the decision to kill Carter came from Taraji P. Henson herself. She was, in her own words, not happy creatively and miserable. She said she prayed about being so creatively unfulfilled and then spoke to the producer, who supported her decision to leave.
She actually said she was miserable. That's a strong word.
And she was clear it wasn't about money, it was about creative fulfillment. She told Variety, "I don't think I'm there in my career yet, where I ride out a show until the wheels fall off. I'm still getting calls by big-time movie directors, and I still have a lot of movies I want to do." So the character's death is this tragic, beautifully written exit, but it was driven by an actress who needed to go do other things.
Which is kind of a fascinating inversion. The audience is devastated by this loss on screen, and the real story behind it is actually about someone reclaiming their own creative life.
Completely. And Screen Rant notes that since Person of Interest became a Netflix hit more recently, the question of why Carter died has come up more and more frequently. New audiences discovering the show are hitting that episode 9 moment and going looking for answers.
Okay, so after the HR trilogy and Carter's exit, the season pivots hard into the Samaritan arc. Walk me through what that actually is.
So Samaritan is a rival AI. Where Finch's machine was built with constraints, it deletes its irrelevant data every night, it operates within limits Finch programmed in. Samaritan is described by Grokipedia as a rival unconstrained AI initiated by a multinational conglomerate called Decima Technologies.
Unconstrained. That's the key word, right? The machine has rules. Samaritan doesn't.
Exactly. And Grokipedia describes the second half of the season as shifting toward a high-stakes AI arms race. The team has to confront existential risks to privacy and autonomy. The villain running Decima is John Greer, played by John Nolan, who appears in 8 episodes. The Showbiz Junkies review called him wonderfully portrayed and described him as having the upper hand on our heroes by the end of the season.
And then there's Vigilance, which is this anti-surveillance group that seems like it should be on the same side as our heroes, but isn't.
This is where the season gets genuinely clever. Vigilance, led by Collier, is a violent hacktivist organization devoted to exposing and destroying surveillance systems. On paper, they're fighting the same thing Finch and Reese are fighting, but they're willing to kill anyone they suspect is connected to the machine. And here's the twist that the finale reveals: Vigilance is actually being used by Decima.
Wait, Vigilance, the anti-surveillance group, is a tool of the pro-surveillance corporation?
That's the gut punch of the finale. Collier thinks he's exposing the machine to the world. He's streaming what he believes is a trial of the people behind government surveillance. But the whole thing is being orchestrated by Decima to create a crisis that justifies bringing Samaritan online with government approval. The people fighting the system are being weaponized by the system.
That is a genuinely dark piece of writing. The resistance becomes the justification for more control.
And it's all in the finale, Deus Ex Machina, which aired May 13, 2014, and drew 10.95 million viewers according to the Person of Interest wiki. The title literally means God from the Machine, a literary term for an impossible situation resolved by an unexpected force. And the wiki notes that the near-divine capabilities of the machine make the title doubly relevant.
So what actually happens in that finale? Walk me through it.
Collier has put Finch on trial. He's streaming it to the world. Finch, Control, the government overseer of the machine, Senator Ross Garrison, and a man named Manuel Rivera are all in this kangaroo court. Collier calls Rivera to the stand, Rivera refuses to cooperate, and Collier murders him on the spot. That's the opening move.
And Reese is out there trying to find where this trial is happening.
Right. The machine has cut the power to New York City, a blackout, and Reese is navigating dark streets with Shaw's old CIA boss, trying to locate Vigilance members who can reveal the courthouse location. Meanwhile, Shaw and Root have found Decima's main storage facility and are trying to stop Samaritan from going online. Or so they think.
Because it's all a setup.
The whole trial, the whole Vigilance operation, it's Decima's play. And at the end of the episode, Samaritan goes online. The heroes fail. Greer has the upper hand. The season ends with our team in a worse position than when it started, facing an unconstrained AI that now has government backing and sees them as targets.
That's a bold choice for a season finale. The bad guys win.
And it's earned. The Showbiz Junkies review called it the most ambitious and shocking season of the crime drama series to date. The season received highly positive reviews from critics, with its focus on artificial intelligence singled out for praise, according to Wikipedia. Grokipedia puts the reviewer's score at 9.4 out of 10.
Let's talk about what the season does with its characters beyond just the plot mechanics, because there are some really interesting arcs happening underneath all the action.
The one that I think gets underappreciated is Root's arc. She starts the season in a psych ward, escapes with the machine's help, and spends the rest of the season becoming its analog interface. The Person of Interest wiki describes her journey as one of redemption. She's this character who was genuinely dangerous and morally unmoored in earlier seasons, and now she's finding purpose through service to something larger than herself.
And Amy Acker is in 17 of 23 episodes. That's a significant presence.
She really carries a lot of the season's philosophical weight. And then there's Finch's arc. Episodes 11 and 12, Lethe and Alethea, are flashback episodes that go into Finch's backstory and the machine's origins post 9/11. You get to understand why he built it the way he did, with all those constraints.
The constraints that Samaritan doesn't have. So those flashbacks are doing double duty. They're character history, and they're also setting up the contrast with the new threat.
Exactly. And then there's Reese's arc post-Carter. The wiki describes it as disillusionment following the death of one of their own, his temporary retirement and return. He doesn't just bounce back, he leaves. And when he comes back, something has shifted in him.
The Showbiz Junkies review made a point about Caviezel specifically, that this was the first season where he showed true sadness and grief, because Reese is usually so controlled.
And that's what makes it land. The review described him as owning the role with his icy stare and half smirk in normal circumstances. So when that facade cracks over Carter, it hits differently. You've spent 2.5 seasons watching this man be unshakable, and then he's not.
There's something worth noting about the show's structure this season, too. It's blending procedural cases with this serialized mythology. The numbers are still coming in, people are still being saved week to week, but the bigger story is always moving.
Grokopedia describes it as episodes that blend procedural numbers with serialized mythology, emphasizing themes of surveillance ethics, institutional corruption, and the perils of unchecked AI. That's a pretty precise description of what the show is doing. The case of the week is never just filler, it usually connects to or illuminates the larger arc.
Like episode 2, Nothing to Hide, where the number is an internet entrepreneur who strips people of their privacy, and that's also the episode where Collier first appears. The case and the mythology are in conversation.
Perfectly put. And the season is produced by Kilter Films, Bad Robot, and Warner Bros. Television, with Jonathan Nolan and Greg Pleegman as executive producers, J.J. Abrams also among the producers. Pleegman is the showrunner. That's a lot of creative firepower behind a show that was already hitting its stride.
Jonathan Nolan, Christopher Nolan's brother, co-created the show. And you can feel that influence in the way the season handles its AI themes. It's not sensationalized, it's treated with a kind of philosophical seriousness.
The machine's sentience is fully revealed this season, according to Wikipedia's season summary. It increasingly communicates with and proactively assists the team. It's not just a tool anymore, it has something like agency. And that raises the question the season keeps circling. What do you do when the thing you built starts making its own decisions?
And Samaritan is the dark answer to that question. An AI that makes its own decisions with no ethical constraints built in.
Exactly. And the finale's title, Deus Ex Machina, is doing something interesting there. The term usually means a convenient resolution that comes out of nowhere. But here, the machine, the god in the machine, can't save everyone. The heroes lose. The title is almost ironic.
The god from the machine shows up and still can't stop what's coming. That's a pretty bleak note to end on.
It is. And it sets up season 4 in what Grokopedia calls the new Samaritan era. The team has to go underground, essentially. Samaritan is online, it sees them as targets, and everything changes. The IMDb reviewer noted the finale left things fresh for season 4, which is a generous way of saying the good guys are now on the run.
So when you step back from all 23 episodes and look at what season 3 is actually doing as a whole, what's the through line?
I think it's about the cost of fighting systems that are bigger than you. Carter spends the whole first half of the season dismantling HR, and she succeeds. She actually wins, and it kills her. Vigilance spends the whole season fighting surveillance, and they're being used as a weapon by the very thing they're fighting. The team tries to stop Samaritan, and fails. Every victory has a price, and the final loss is total.
And yet the show got renewed for a 4th season in March 2014, according to Wikipedia. So audiences were clearly not done with this world, despite, or maybe because of, how dark it got.
14 million average viewers, 8th most watched series of the season. People were invested, and the critical reception was genuinely strong. The surprise twists received specific acclaim, per Wikipedia. The Carter death, the Vigilance reveal, the Samaritan activation, none of it felt cheap.
Here's what I keep coming back to, though. The Taraji P. Henson piece. Because knowing that Carter's death came from her own decision to leave, that she was miserable, creatively unfulfilled, praying about it, it doesn't make the on-screen death less tragic. But it adds this whole other layer.
It does. Screen Rant's piece on it notes that Carter had not reached a clear end to her arc when she died. The character had more story to tell, so the writers had to construct a meaningful exit for a character who was leaving, not because her story was done, but because the actress needed to go. And they pulled it off in a way that felt earned.
Which is actually a testament to the writing room. They took a real-world constraint and turned it into one of the most emotionally resonant moments in the show's run.
And Henson reprised the role for one episode in season 4 as a hallucination, according to Screen Rant. So even after the death, the character's presence lingered. Reese couldn't let go. The show couldn't let go.
Okay, here's what this really comes down to. Season 3 of Person of Interest is doing something that a lot of prestige TV claims to do but rarely pulls off. It's making you feel the weight of every decision. Carter's death isn't a shock for shock's sake. Samaritan going online isn't a cliffhanger for the sake of a cliffhanger. These are consequences.
And the surveillance themes hit differently now than they did in 2013. We're living in a world where the questions the show was asking, who watches the watchers? What happens when AI has no constraints? Can you fight a system from inside it? Are not hypothetical anymore. Season 3 was ahead of that conversation.
The Snowden timing was not a coincidence. The show was tapping into something real, and the audience felt it.
And what's interesting is that the show doesn't give you easy answers. Vigilance is wrong in their methods, but right in their concerns. The machine is benevolent, but still surveillance. Samaritan is the nightmare version of what the machine could have been without Finch's ethical constraints. Every position has a shadow.
So if you're coming to season 3 fresh, maybe you found the show on Netflix, what should you be watching for?
Watch the HR arc as a complete story. Episodes 1 through 10 are essentially their own contained narrative about Carter's mission and its cost. Then watch the Samaritan arc as the season's second act, paying attention to how Vigilance and Decima are connected. And when you hit the finale, listen to the title, Deus Ex Machina. The god from the machine shows up, and it's not enough.
And don't skip Razgovor. The Shaw and the 10-year-old episode, 9.1 on IMDb. It's a breather in the middle of a very intense season, and it's genuinely great.
Absolutely. And The Devil's Share, episode 10, is the one that the IMDb reviewer called the highlight of the season. The fallout from Carter's death, Reese going after Simmons. It's the show at its most raw.
23 episodes, 3 villain factions, 1 devastating death, and a finale where the heroes lose. Season 3 of Person of Interest is the season that proved this show was playing a longer, darker game than anyone expected. And the fact that it averaged 14 million viewers while doing all of that, that's not nothing.
It's a show that trusted its audience to handle complexity, and the audience showed up. The critical praise for the AI focus, the Snowden timing, the Carter death, all of it landed because the writing was doing real work underneath the action.
Remember that opening image? Reese, the unshakable operative, crying over Carter's body while Finch watches in horror? That's what Season 3 is. It's a show that built you up to believe these people could win, and then showed you exactly what winning costs. Thanks for walking through all of it with us. The machine is watching, and apparently, that's not always enough.